Hello, everybody, once again. Um, as usual, my name is Andrew. I represent Galileosky technical support team, and I will be one of today's hosts at our webinar, which is dedicated to agriculture and our solutions, Galileosky solutions in agricultural sphere, as well as Whale-on solution, which will be represented by the second presenter, Julia, Whale-on trainer. She will take the second part of the webinar and tell about their new application, which is called Hecterra. Yes, so just 1 second, I will switch to our presentation. Okay, so as I mentioned, our today's webinar will be concerning GPS monitoring of agricultural machinery and vehicles and how to solve key tasks that clients or big companies or even integrators can face while working in this sphere. Before we begin to talk about the webinar itself, I wanted to also make a brief notification, say a brief news. You might not know, but our company has been watching for the participants of our webinar from the beginning of the year. I can see that today are many guys who just connected for the first time. There are some people who connect and watch our webinars well, with some periodicity, so periodically. And also I see that we have two people here who are constantly watching. So Alejandro Lopez Toledo and Serge Guerreri, hello to you, and thank you very much for your constant participation in our webinars. We value it very much, and I wanted to tell you that we are starting a new small program to just to support our viewers of the webinars. So we are preparing a cool prize at the end of the year for our clients who participate in the webinars most, according to the to the final results of the year. So we are very happy when you register for the webinars and when you participate them and are online and ask your real questions to us. So we just wanted to to give you a little bit of additional motivation for that. So it will be just our gratitude to you, some special prize, and there will be more details later. That's just what I wanted to tell you for now. Now, as for the program of today's webinar, so as I mentioned, we will look at what current tasks, key tasks are there in the agricultural sphere with the machinery and vehicles, and how you can solve them with, in specific with our trackers. What are the tracker advantages and disadvantages for this industry, for this sphere, from the point of Galileosky trackers? What kind of vehicle CAN bus data you can get using our CAN scanner tool in the Galileosky trackers? Some tips on how to create solutions and scenarios, unique scenarios using our EasyLogic technology. And Julia will tell you about the abilities of their new application Hecterra, and how to get ready to work with it, and how to work with Cultivations with this application. So before we begin, a little information on the webinar platform itself. And the webinar itself, this webinar will approximately take 60 minutes. The recording of this webinar will be made automatically after we finish the webinar, and will be sent to your emails that you wrote when you registered for this event. If you have any questions, you can ask them on the questions tab. As you can see, it's on the upper right side of your screen, on the icon with the question mark. So this one, you can also write them in chat, but it's more convenient when you ask them in the questions tab, so it's easier for us to monitor and answer all the questions if there are many. And I think there will be plenty because the topic is rather interesting and there are many details here. Let's start with what are the main agricultural tasks when talking about the GPS monitoring. Of course, first of all, it's monitoring and a remote configuration of the machinery itself. So usually the clients want to monitor where is their equipment, their machinery, what routes did it take and where was it driving, to control this machinery even in the conditions when there is no network coverage, so that the machinery didn't just stop or stop working correctly when it cannot get info from via GPS, GSM, I mean, or Wi-Fi, and so on. So management of the vehicle when it's loading or unloading the cargo, the cultivated harvest, and of course to control the driver's discipline. They are following the routes. They're accurate driving, well, of course, no fuel or harvest losses, and so on. So our trackers can allow to reach these goals by different means, which we'll look at a little bit later. When talking about the cultivation of, cost reduction of vehicle operation, this is also one of key tasks for the integrators. The main tasks here are, first of all, of course, to get rid, at maximum, to get rid of any non-targeted activities, like times when machinery is just standing, not working, with the engine on, or driving to some other places which it's not actually considered to be and to go. To control fuel consumption, because as you know, heavy machinery usually have the same heavy amount of fuel consumption, so we can control it, not to prevent fuel drains and to control refuelings when they're done. We can control working time of not only the machinery itself, so the vehicle itself, but also of specific mechanisms of the vehicle. For example, the cutters, the harvesters, and so on. If they are connected separately and have signal output, we can always control by voltage or other signal when it's active and when it's deactivated. And of course, to reduce the number of empty trips when the machinery went there and back again and no actual result was achieved. So that is also non-desirable activity that we can control to prevent. Next is controlling of spaces and accuracy of the crops cultivation. Since there are different types of crops and different types of harvest and different fields, we can actually separate one from another, so we can get information about the fields and the harvest online. So where is the machinery, what field is being cultivated, how much harvest has been cultivated from each field. So we can get data about the field cultivation accuracy if there weren't any spots left behind, to ignore skips or double trips. We can control the time and the sequence of field cultivation, so we can set routes or set certain speed or certain time limits, and the drivers or just the dispatcher can control it remotely or locally, thus improving and increasing the efficiency of work. And we can set to send notifications when the driver is violating working hours, for example, sitting in the machinery after working hours when he's not supposed to, or when he leaves the areas of work, so the actual field, which is usually prohibited. Apart from that, a very important task is to register how much actually harvest was cultivated, so harvested crops. We can set online monitoring of this harvest shipment from the storages to other places of determination. We can automatically determine how much harvest has been collected, of course using external sensors like weight sensors or volume sensors, capacity. We can differentiate the harvest amount on different fields. As I already mentioned, it can be done using the geofences or whatsoever. So this is just the task that can be set for the integrator to differentiate different types of crops. And of course, preventing machinery overload is also quite an important task, since overloading machinery reduces its service lifetime and or working lifetime, and usually such machinery is not a cheap thing, so it's an expensive one. So the integrators and the clients would always aim to prolong this life and to prevent any overloads or overworkings. And I guess, also one of the important tasks that the integrators face in agriculture is to preserve the collected harvest, because it's not only to collect, it's also to safely drive it, transport it to a required place. So the many tasks here are to transport and route follow, to control the routes followed by the vehicles when transporting the cargo, the harvest, to reduce the harvest damage when while transportation. For example, if there are any requirements for the temperature level of the harvest to be transported. Preventing machinery overload also, as mentioned in the previous task, or cargo theft. So we can set by volume, by capacity, by weight, and set checking if any changes have been applied while driving, for example. Of course, we can identify the drivers and use photo cameras with making photos on special events or by time when there is the process of loading or unloading the harvest into the vehicle, and set reports to mention the place, time, and weight of while being loaded or unloaded. For example, if someone tried to unload the truck partly on some place which is not by the main route. So all that is clear and seen on the monitoring software after certain tasks to being applied to the tracker, and after certain settings set. So let's now look what our trackers can do to just to sum up, the main tasks here are to remotely control the special machinery to reduce the maintenance costs of the vehicles and the machinery, to control space, accuracy, and time of the field cultivation, to preserve the collected harvest, and to register automatically the amount of crops. So what can our trackers, Galileosky trackers, do to help to create, to achieve those goals and to fulfill those tasks? Our trackers can, and always create a precise track and define the geographical position, plus it is online, so if there is a good network coverage and the tracker can send online data, then the dispatcher will always know not only what track the tracker already had and already covered, but also where is it now and what is it doing now. The data can be transmitted not only via GPRS but also via Wi-Fi channel, or collected via Wi-Fi trackers like base block Wi-Fi hub or our application EasyKeeper, in order to in places where the network coverage is low, because the agricultural fields are not sometimes they are not included into the GSM coverage, which is why all the work is being done offline. So to transmit data fast using Wi-Fi is a good option here. The tracker can interact with machinery, as I mentioned, even when there is no GSM network coverage. So you just set certain settings and certain algorithms of work on the tracker, and it does everything, all the rest by itself, just according to the behavior pattern that you set for it. We can set and create polygonal geofences for the fields of different shapes. It can be rectangular, it can be like a road or a line, or figures of any shape. And the tracker can be set to work with them, to send data about the fields, to send data, special points, special archive points when it enters or leaves the field, and so on. So there are plenty of things to do with that. We have a large list of compatible sensors and additional devices that can be used with our trackers and with the agricultural machinery. So you can see the full list on our website, Galileosky.com, on the support documentation page. And there are multiple opportunities to configure the tracker remotely and to change settings remotely using the SMS commands, GPRS commands from the monitoring software, or GPRS commands from the configurator program, including sending commands to groups of trackers. In case you have similar trackers, similar machinery, and you need to apply similar settings. One of the key advantages of our equipment is, of course, CAN scanner. If some of you haven't heard it, what it is, it's a powerful tool that allows to scan the CAN bus using any CAN protocols, and get information that is sent via the CAN bus, to read it and to further use it in EasyLogic, or just send to the monitoring software, and so on. Also, our trackers support sending commands via CAN bus into the vehicle and receiving answers from it. So the basic examples here, what can be done using this CAN scanner is reading the machinery working parameters and control them. For example, engine temperature, fuel level, mileage, speed, and other parameters. And also in the agriculture, we can from time to time, depending of course on the vehicle and what it can send via CAN bus, read data on specific working parameters, like the position of the combine harvester, the speed of the threshing drum, the trailer, the shaker, and others. So there are different types, different specific parameters sent via CAN bus, and the CAN scanner can allow you to read them. We have several videos on our channel on how to work with CAN scanner, so please look at them and use them in your work. And of course, there are multiple solutions on what to do and what can be done using the EasyLogic technology, so EasyLogic algorithms. The main, EasyLogic is an algorithmical tool that allows to create sequences of actions and reactions to certain parameters. These can be long chains of events, so different logical sequences can be created. Just some examples of these are machinery speed control during the harvesting of the fields, and online notifications when any violations are being spotted. Harvest shipment access by identification of the worker or machinery unit using, for example, RFID, one wire or Wigand counter and reader. Automatic server data transmission via Wi-Fi channel. So when tracker sees Wi-Fi network that it can connect to, using certain SSID login and password, it can automatically connect to Wi-Fi from GPRS and start sending data with much higher speed. Dispatcher and driver can get notified when the machinery is in a specific geofence, so also quite handy when you need to control on what field you are currently and what crops are you collecting, just not to confuse, because it can be sometimes confusing sitting in the cabin. And of course, dispatcher can be notified when there are any machinery performance violations, for example, if there is anything broken or misused, used incorrectly. So these were the main points from the Galileosky point of view concerning the agricultural work and working with agricultural sphere, cultivating the harvest, and what tools can be used from the Galileosky trackers. So just the basic settings, the easy logic, and the CAN scanner tool. Now I pass my word to Yulia from Wheelon, the Wheelon trainer, to tell us about the opportunities of their new application, Hecterra, from Grutum. So, Yulia.
Thank you, Andrew. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, so I believe we can continue. So my name is Yulia, and today we are presenting the new Violon-based application, Hecterra, that was released in May. So I will share my screen with you so to be able to show the application functionality. Okay, Hecterra is a new VLAN-based application designed for agricultural cultivation area counting, and it can also be used for your own developments in accordance with your customers' requirements. In this application, we focused on the basic universal tasks of all agribusinesses. So these basic tasks are information about fields and crops. So we included this information in the application. The volume of cultivations and the special implements and drivers control. The new application includes two main components. The first one is the basic interface in which the above named tasks are performed. And the second one is the API that provides the possibility of integrating the application with the third-party solutions. In Hecterra, we focused on this possibility, understanding the diversity of the specific requirements for the application in different agribusinesses. So the documentation on the API is available from the interface of the application, from the user settings. Let's go to the application itself, and we will start with the reports. So the result of working in the application will be a report that can be built on a unit or on a field, on a driver, on technological operation, and even on all cultivations that are available to this user. So let's run a report for one of the units. Okay, for example, for tractor 3. Okay. You see that you receive this information about all the cultivations performed by these particular units, and each of the cultivations is clickable. So in the window that opens, you can see the field, the tracks of movements in the field, cultivations that are based on the width of the implement. You can see the overlaps, the emissions, the volume of the fuel spent, and some other information. We will talk about the cultivations characteristics a bit later. Now the question is, what is supposed to be done in order to receive information in the report? You remember that this is Vialon-based application. So first, we need to make sure that the units created in Vialon previously are configured correctly and send messages to our server. So you need to go to the Messages tab and check the messages from the unit. We recommend that the messages from the units arrive with the frequency sufficiently high for building a detailed track. So you see that this track is rather detailed, so the accuracy of the coordinates is very important when registering cultivations. Next, you need to create drivers and trailers in the system. The trailers, these ones, will be used in Hecterra as implements, and the drivers will be used as drivers who were assigned to the units when the cultivations were performed. After all these settings are done in Vialon, the units are created, the drivers and the trailers are created as well and assigned to the corresponding units. We can go back to the application interface and continue working there. When settings, with these settings, we can proceed to creating the fields. There are 3 methods for creating the fields, so they can be created manually in the application itself, just like this. Okay, they can be imported from KML and shape files, and they can be synchronized with the geofences in Vialon. Only the geofences polygons up to 1,000 hectares can be used for synchronizing them with the application Hecterra. Okay, now we have a list of the fields that are going to be cultivated, and we need to create a list of crops that grow on our fields. For each culture, we set the name and the color. So the name and the color. The color will be used if crop rotation is indicated for the field, and the crop that is currently growing on it is known. And in this case, the field will be painted on the map in the color of this culture. So you see the color, and in the pop-up window, you can see what exact culture is growing on this field right now. If for the period for which work is registered, crop rotation is indicated, then the information about the culture is also used during registration for work in the field. So we recommend creating this crops list, and after the crops list is created, we need to match the crops with the fields and indicate when and where certain types of crops grew and what is currently growing on the fields. So the crop rotation is indicated individually for each field. So we need to go to the fields page and use this edit button. So when editing the field, we have a separate page called crop rotation. And you see that here we can specify crops for different periods starting from the year 2000. You can only set the dates of sowing and harvesting for the past period. So if the crop is still growing, do not indicate the harvesting date, and in this case the crop is considered as currently growing and the field is colored with this color on the map as we have just seen. Okay, now this step is already done and we can continue with the operations. An operation or technological operation is a type of work performed in a field. On the operations page, we create a list of technological operations that are usually performed in our fields. We enter the name of the operation and that's all, but still please don't skip this tab. The operations are useful in the further stages of your work in Hecterra. So let's continue with the implements, and the list of implements is not created in the application, so it is formed automatically from the trailers available in our resource in Vialon. So this list is the same that we see here in the trailers tab. Okay, so the implements characteristics include working widths, in meters and the operation from the operations list created on a previous tab. So basically the working width is very important because the cultivation area will be calculated based on the unit track and the implements width. Okay, so after this is done, we may go to the units. So the units are tractors, combines, and other agricultural machinery that works in the fields. So units, messages, and their intersections with the fields give us an idea of works performed in the fields. The same as for the drivers, there is no separate page for the units in Hecterra. This is due to the fact that the system uses the units that are available to the current user, and does not presuppose changes to them in the application. So if you need to edit something in the unit properties, this is to be done in Vialon interface. So, okay, now we can see how a registration of the cultivation is done. So when the account is set up and there are fields, crops, operations, implements with working widths, units with messages, drivers with bindings in the system, so we can proceed to detecting and registering cultivations in our fields. So a cultivation is a work performed in a field by the machinery. So to launch a search for potential cultivations, we go to registering page, select the date, so let it be yesterday, select a unit or several units, we can select up to 10 units in this case, and click search. So as a result, we will see the table of potential cultivations. So we call potential cultivations the cultivations that the system has found, but the user has not registered them. we may study the information about each potential cultivation in full detail on a separate page, and then make a decision to approve or to decline this cultivation. So only after approval of the user, a potential cultivation officially becomes a registered cultivation. So it means that now, after I approve it, it is saved to the database and it can be viewed in the reports. So after this confirmation. And one of the questions that the users ask is, what are the requirements to the track to become a cultivation? So the minimum time spent in the field is 1 minute. The length of the track in the field must be more than 80% of the perimeter of the field. So the following characteristics are also used to describe the cultivation. Let's see. So the cultivated area, this is the area of the field cultivated by the unit. So the length of the track inside the field multiplied by the implement's width. So the implement's width is important in this case. The overlaps. This is the area of the field sections which the unit visited more than once during the cultivation. We can also see this information on the map. The overlaps, here they are. The overlaps, okay. The emissions. This is the total area of the sections of which the unit did not visit. So these may be the blank spaces between the sections of the cultivation, or sections adjusted to the edge of the field. So these are the emissions. If the emissions exceed a hectare, the system will include them in the remaining area or area left. It will be assumed that this part of the field can still be processed another time or by other means of transport. And this area means that it has not been cultivated in general. Okay, so the cultivated area, the overlappings and the emissions, as well as the track of the movement of the unit, are visualized on the map. So you can activate these layers on the map, and they can be turned off if you don't need them. This processing information is stored in the system for 11 months. After the processing date, after the cultivation date. Moreover, if the units have fuel sensors, the information about the fuel volume spent on these cultivation will be also seen in the cultivation characteristics. After the improvement, so let's approve this cultivation. It is completely correct. So the cultivation is stored in the application database and can be viewed in the report for 5 years. So if we need to edit the already registered cultivation properties, because if we notice that there is some mistake in this cultivation or something is missing, in this case we can open these cultivation properties and we can delete this already registered cultivation, and after that we can find it once again. We can register it once again, but we will have the possibility to modify it previously, and then we will approve it once again, and as the result of it, the information about this cultivation in the report will be modified according to our latest actions. So basically that is all I wanted to tell you about the application, and I believe we can go to the questions and answers section. Thank you for your attention.
One is for the Galileosky, so concerning our trackers, from Gabriel Perez. So he asks what happens if we have a machinery with double canvas net. Yes, that is good question. Thank you very much. In this case, for now, there are several solutions, but well, there is not. We don't yet have a tracker that can work with both canvases at the same time. We are actually working on such model, and I believe it will be released this year, which will support up to two separate CAN buses and two separate CAN bus connections. But for now, it's either working with one CAN bus only, or connecting two separate trackers to each of the CAN buses, or using the CAN log device, which, as far as I know, can work with two CAN buses at the same time. Although, of course, it's better to address the company providing these CAN log devices. We have instructions concerning these devices on our website in the instructions section. Yulia, I believe the second.
Yes, Andrew, thank you. I believe the this question from Ivan is for me. So, what is the best way to automatically connect a trailer? Any method will be fine. So you can connect a trailer manually. So it can be done by the operator or by any other person responsible for these operations. So it can be connected manually, you can use any other method. So it can be a RFID or any card for detecting what trailer is used. Whenever you do it, you need to create a special sensor in the unit properties, the sensor for binding the trailer, and the trailer itself is supposed to have a code that will be used for binding the trailer to the unit, to the vehicle. But still, even if the trailer was not binded to the unit during the cultivation, it can be added when registering the cultivation, because if this information is missing, you will be able to modify it during the registration. So let's see how it works. For example, so let's select some other date, or it doesn't matter, okay. Okay, so when registering a cultivation, you see that you can change the implement that was used, so the trailer that was used. So even if there was no trailer assigned, so you can do it later when registering it. I believe I answered your question. So the next one is from Steve. Steve asks if Hecterra can be used to track the application and effectiveness of fertilizer and or insecticides. So right now the application is designed to cover the basic needs of the agribusinesses, and it shows us the information about the fields and crops, the volume of cultivations, and the special implements that were used and the drivers. So right now it doesn't have such a possibility, but if you use our system or if you're planning to do it, you're welcome to join the application discussion in the forum, and you can suggest this idea to our developers. So I believe, okay, the next question from Ivan is regarding the trailers. So thank you, but I was thinking on hardware base. Can Galileosky team speak about it? So Andrew, I believe it is for you.
Yes, I also think that's for me. Thank you, Yulia. Although I do not quite see how what is required. So, Ivan, could you specify what do you mean by automatical binding of the trailer to the tracker? Because on the tracker side, on Galileo's side, there is no way to set the vehicle used or the machinery used, mainly because trackers can be usually replaced, but still mostly because there is usually no need in that. So could you just specify what goal you want to achieve from the tracker side? In this case, maybe there is some solution, just not in the way that you are looking at. So while we are waiting, okay, if a trailer is connected, that system can automatically recognize trailer. Okay, I'm sorry, Evan, but still, I don't quite get what is required from us. You mean that the system automatically sees that there? Well, this is still not thing based on the hardware, so not from our side. Or you mean if a trailer is connected to the tracker? In this case, I guess there can be made an integration, but we would need to look closer just at the way this trailer operates now and what data it is sending and how we can actually recognize. But of course, if it uses one of the standard protocols or standard interfaces like Rust 232 or REST 485, we can surely look into integrating with it for automatical further work with it. Although the periphery type will still be needed to be chosen manually. So that's always the case. The user should choose manually what periphery is connected, and then the tracker starts working with it according to its scenarios. Yulia, I can also see a question from Steve. I guess it wasn't answered yet.
Okay, let me see the question from Steve. Hecterra, if it can be used to track the application effectiveness. I answered this question already. Do you see some other one? I
I'm
did
sorry.
not mark it.
Then
Okay, it is marked
yeah.
already. Okay.
Yeah, there are in the chat if any of those haven't been answered. Okay. No, this also was answered. Okay, then for now, I guess this is it. So if any new questions appear, please share with us while the webinar is still here. Our next webinar will be either in the end of this month or in the beginning of the next month. We'll talk about new features that were added recently into in the Galileosky devices. So try not to miss them, and also don't forget about the thing that I mentioned in the beginning. If some of you were absent, we are starting a new client support program concerning the webinars registration and participation. So we are collecting data on how many users and which what users were participating from the beginning of this year, and we are counting their number of participations until the end of this year. And in the end, we find the one that participated most, and we'll prepare a special gift for him, so a special prize for being loyal to our webinars. Let's call it like that. There will be more details when we'll prepare for the next webinar. So I guess that we'll give this information when sending invites for the next webinar. So keep in touch and pay attention to our mails. Okay. So I see Gabriel and Bosco are having a little dialogue of their own about the support. Oh yes, I think that yes, the CEO electronics scan logs are really integrated, and no, everything is fine. It wasn't an accusation of some sort, just observation. Just yes, a little comment here. We have integration with CEO's CAN logs, both for text protocol P145 and for binary protocols. So the models B30, B40, B20. You can see both instructions on our website galileosky.com in the documentation section. And yes, these CAN logs allow to get well, a good list of parameters from the CAN bus, including CAN bus of the agricultural machinery. So that is one of the solutions for machinery as a whole connected to Galileosky trackers, and specifically for machinery with 2 CAN buses. So nothing to be sorry about. All right. As far as I can see, there are no new questions. So thank you all very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Julia, for your participation.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, the participants.
Yes, it was very productive and interesting. I hope that every other participant also finds it that way. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, and good luck. And stay tuned with us.